Good evening, all. I'm Cheryl Colasso. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Herman Aranna, consultant, Tata Power Skill Development Institute, who will be delivering the technical talk on power sector reforms in India, challenges and opportunities. Mr. Herman Aranna, an electrical engineer from KRAC, Surathkal, presently NITK. He was one of the topper in his class. He has worked in reputed national and international organizations like Tata Power Company Mumbai and Tata Enterprises Overseas AG on deputation. He has more than 45 years of experience in management of installation and commissioning, operation and maintenance of HV and EHV switchgear, transformers and substations for generation, transmission, and distribution systems in India and abroad. Prior to his retirement in April 2012, he was heading technical trainings of Tata Power Mumbai. Post-retirement, associated with Tata Power Skill Development Institute, TPSDI in short, as a consultant in evaluation, design, content development, and delivery of trainings. He has conducted more than 150 trainings covering about 3,000 engineers, senior executives, and students of India, Bhutan, Ethiopia, and Liberia. He has also conducted several seminars and workshops for engineering college students. He is recognized as Train the Trainer by Power Sector Skill Council of India and United States Agency for International Development. So I'm also happy to state that he is my uncle. Okay, so now over to Mr. Herman Aranna for the session. Mr. Aranna?
Yeah. 1 minute.
Slides.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, slides are not visible.
Slideshow. So is it visible?
No.
Hello? Not visible?
No, slides, it might come now. Open again.
Wait, I'll call my daughter. Then what?
Dear students, if you have any questions, you can just mail in the chat box. So finally, I will be asking the question with the speaker. Okay. So the speaker, he will be telling about the recent reforms and the electricity acts, etc. as well as the opportunities in the Tata Power Skill Development Institute for enhancing your skills. Okay. So if you have any queries, please post your comments in the chat box, which I will be finally asking the speaker. Okay. Mr. Arana, so the slides are visible. Put it in the slideshow. Mr. Arana, I request you to put it in the slideshow. Yeah, now it is properly.
Is it coming now?
Yes, it's properly
It's
visible.
coming now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. 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 No matter how to remove this. So thank you, Cheryl, and let me thank the management and staff of St. Joseph Engineering College for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this power sector reforms in India, challenges and opportunities. Now, power sector before Electricity Act 2003. Now, 1 minute.
It's proper.
Yeah. There is one distinct toolbar is coming.
No, we can't see. We can't see.
Yeah, it is troubling me, the toolbar. Okay. So now, as we know, the AC transmission first developed in the world in USA in 1990-1992, where the AC transmission first developed. And by 1914, Tata Power was the first company to start AC transmission and AC power distribution in Bombay. 1914. That means we were not very far from the new technology. India, although our country was under the rule of Britishers, we kept up with the technology thanks to Mr. Jamshedji Tata. He got foreign consultants, imported foreign machinery, and the first generating station started at Khopoli Hydroelectric Power Station. And at that time, the biggest generating unit rating was 12 megawatt. That was the highest generating capacity. Today it is more than 500 megawatt, 750 megawatt generating units have come, but that was the biggest one. So the credit goes to Jamshedji Tata. It was a 110 kV transmission line from Khopoli to Mumbai at our Parel receiving station. So at that time, it was necessary to have the rules regarding installation, basic framework for installing the electrical circuit, electrical equipment. To take care of it in 1910, Electricity Act 1910 was established. This was mainly dealing with the basic framework for installation, supply and distribution, generation, transmission and distribution of electricity. And it was aiming for private licenses like Tata Power, then Calcutta Electric Power Supply Company, Ahmedabad Electric Supply Company. So these were the private players who basically located in bigger metropolis. And the license was issued by the concerned state government. Remember, it was under the rule of British before our independence. Then we got the independence in 1947. So Electricity Supply Act 1945, it came into existence. It was mainly for focusing on establishing state electricity boards so that the electricity can reach each and every part of each and every corner of our country, India. So vertically integrated state electricity boards established, and you may be knowing the Karnataka Electricity Board, which earlier it was Mysore State Electricity Board, MSCB. It was established in 1954, I think. Then, having got these acts, Electricity Act, then there was a need for to have a electricity rules to deal with statutory requirements, safety, operations, maintenance requirement, and testing, all those things to be covered under the electricity rules. So electricity rules came into existence in 1956. Afterwards, what happened? There was a growth in power generation, distribution, transmission, but there was a requirement of independent power producers, then national level generation like NTPC and all that, no? So that came NTPC, National Hydropower Supply Company, National Nuclear Power Corporations, all that corporations established. Then if you see 1992 was the year where there was a economic opening of our country. So when the economy was opened up, there was an opportunity for private player to put generating station. Otherwise, private players could not operate in power sector because that requires a license. So once the economy was opened up, there was independent power players and captive power players. Along with that, there was a requirement of state reforms because the thing was there was development was slow, then T&D losses were high, growth was not taking place as per the requirement. So there was a requirement for reforms at the state level, unbundling, corporatization, regulations, financial restructuring, all that, privatization. But it was left to the concerned states to take care of it. A few states like Delhi, then Orissa, like that, one or two states try to use this facility to reform their electricity sector. And because of that, BSCS and Tata Power, they got a license to have the distribution of power supply in Delhi. However, it was not happening all over India. So there was a need for Electricity Act 2003 to cover the entire country and to have a total reform. So power sector before Electricity Act 2003 was structured this way. It was a vertically integrated companies. Like every state had its own state electricity board, and its state electricity board had their own generation, transmission and distribution system and dedicated customers. No other power player could supply in that area. It was a totally closed area where only this state electricity board could supply. So except for those licenses who had the license prior to establishment of state electricity board, for example, Tata Power, BEST and BSES, which is now Adani in Mumbai. Similarly, Ahmedabad Electric Supply Company, Calcutta Electric Supply Company, like that a few private operators were operating. Then there was central power sector, as I mentioned earlier, NTPC, National Hydro Corporation, Nuclear Power Corporation. They were generating electricity and supplying to state electricity boards through their central sector. This was called central sector because state electricity board supply was not sufficient. So they were drawing from central sector the additional power requirement. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, independent power players, they were also, that is private players, after 1992. They started giving supply to state electricity boards or to the customers. Then the licenses like Tata Power, Calcutta Electric Supply Company, and Ahmedabad Electricity Company, they are all called licenses. They had their own generation, their own transmission system, and their own distribution system and their customers. So Tata Power got a license to supply power supply in and around Mumbai. But no customer had no choice. He had to limit his requirement to the supplier only. He had no choice to take supply from anyone else. So customer was totally, he was duty bound to take supply from these power utilities, irrespective of their efficiency or inefficiency. And some regulator role was played by the state government. He was playing the regulator role for necessary change of tariff and other requirement. Now, why Electricity Act 2003 was required? So, as I mentioned, monopoly of state electricity boards. Customer had no choice. It was a cost plus industry. So, in spite of their inefficiency, they could pass on the inefficiency on the consumer and increase the tariff. So they were never at loss in spite of non-performance. Okay. And the tariffs were regulated by the state government, controlled by the power ministry. Poor O&M practices resulting in unreliable power supply. Then there were a lot of shutdowns which continue even today. Only a few cities like Mumbai where you have 24/7 power supply. I don't remember when the last shutdown had taken place here. Otherwise, all over India, wherever you go, you have always power interruption is there, shutdown is there, load shedding is there because of poor O&M practices resulting in unreliable power supply. And there was always political interference, hampering the growth. High T&D losses and very high commercial losses. Commercial losses means non-payment of bills. That is commercial. T&D losses due to technical or due to theft. Lot of electricity was stolen. The T&D loss and the commercial loss was of the tune of more than 50%. Minimum accountability for technical competence, inefficient operation, financial viability. Government provided subsidies to state electricity board for their inefficiency. Government kept on feeding them. Whenever there is loss, government kept on giving subsidy. But how long government could give the subsidy? By 1980, the financial condition of state electricity board was so bad, no institution was willing to give loan to the government to subsidize the state electricity board because they found that nothing is changing, no improvement. It is only losses and losses. So there was a problem in capacity addition. Generation was not increasing, transmission system was not increasing, distribution system was not increasing. So there was a real problem. Now, the annual report of 2003, that is just before the introduction of Electricity Act 2003, the losses were reported. Entire India was more than 41,000 crores as payment of dues by the state electricity board to the generating companies. This is the level of inefficiency, losses and losses. Because people were not paying the bill, T&D losses were high. So why Electricity Act was required? Electricity Rules 1956 took care of the technical requirement, safety, operation, maintenance, testing. Then came in 1986, the improvements, that is financial requirement, that like to take care of their financial needs. Power finance corporations were set up. The escrow scheme was set up. Escrow same is whatever billing money comes, revenue comes, it will go to the escrow account in the bank. And first they have to pay to the generator because generator has to get the fuel, coal. They have to pay for the fuel. Unless the distributor doesn't pay, generator cannot pay for it. So extra account was set up to take care of that. But electricity boards were under loss. Then came the requirement of reforms. As I mentioned earlier, 8 states adopted this. Legal requirements, those reforms came. Regulation and other things, no, to take care of the legal requirement. Basically, regulation. But what happened? The provision of these acts were obsolete. A new act was required in line with the present business practices. Present business practice, what it wants continuous, uninterrupted power supply, complaint redressal, then payment of dues, efficiency in performance, then rewards for efficiency, penalty for inefficiency. All that is the present requirement. Because all over the world, people are having the continuous where they have to compete. Advanced countries, they have shut down just 25 minutes in a year. So such a high efficient power supply system is happening all over the world. There is improvement happening. So we had to compete with the world. So there was a requirement to take care of all this. So the Electricity Act 2003 came into existence. It takes care of technical, financial, and legal. Unless the legal is there, unless there is a stick to show that you have to perform, otherwise you will be penalized. Things won't work. So this is what Electricity Act 2003 did. Thought for the day. When the problem persists, the solution exists. This is what Mahatma Gandhi was always telling, and he has practiced this. So what Electricity Act means to us? The Electricity Act 2003 brought a paradigm shift in the power sector of India. What does it mean? There was a policy, plan, regulation, then appellate tribunal for dealing with customer grievances, restructuring of state electricity board. Once earlier it was vertical, now unbundling, generation separate, transmission separate, distribution separate, and brought in competition. Competition means the customer was given a choice to source power from whoever he wants. So the competition was established. Like mobile operators, you have the choice to switch over the mobile service provider if the service is not up to the satisfaction. So similar thing was introduced in power sector. And this is happening in Mumbai because there is more than one operator in Mumbai. Mumbai is the only place where there are 3 distribution licenses operating within the Mumbai. And there is a tough competition. Customer has a choice. Then generation was delicensed. Whoever wants to put up a generator, he doesn't require a license. Private sector participation. When the private sector participation comes, the investment comes. Lot of foreign investment entered into India. For example, Enron. Enron was the first generating company from USA to set up the generating station in India. Then power trading. You can do the trading like you trade the shares. You can trade power. There is trading. One trader says, I will give power for so much cost. Another says, I will give still lesser, like that. For trading, along with that, power exchanges started. Then open access. You can source power from any corner of India if you get cheaper power. That is open access. Then parallel license in distribution. As I mentioned, in Mumbai, there are 3 distribution licenses operating in the same area. All other places it is only one license. Then franchisee. Franchisee is the distributor, the distribution licensee can appoint an agency to carry out the expansion of network, installation, operation, maintenance, bill collection, and improving the efficiency. All that the distribution licensee can do it through a franchisee, that is a private agency. Then customer is given a choice to appeal to the customer grievance cell, then appellate tribunal, establishment of the customer service centers, all that came along with electricity bill. Then tariff principles, measures against theft of electricity. So the punishment for electricity theft that came into effect. Tariff principle, the distributor cannot charge whatever way you want. There was a regulator who had the authority to regulate the tariff. Then special provision for rural areas and grid stability. So rural areas, as we discuss in the next slide, although we were talking about rural electrification, it was not going to each and every corner of India. So they provided special provision. Then that means Gram Panchayat can set up their own distribution network and supply electricity. There is no need of a distribution license. Then grid stability. Earlier, there used to be a lot of power shutdowns, blackouts, because indisciplined drawal of power from the utilities. Distribution companies, they used to draw power indiscriminately, resulting in frequency coming down and total blackout. So to prevent that, there was a grid code. Since then, there is a grid stability. You don't see total shutdown, blackouts these days. So earlier slide we saw how the electricity, the power sector was looking before the Electricity Act 2003. Now power sector after introduction of 2003, the whole picture changed. As you see in this slide, the generating companies were separated, distribution companies were separated, all state distribution companies become state discoms, state generating companies become state gencos. Then bilateral powers from other states. Then central sector like NTPC, then National Hydro Corporation, Nuclear Corporation, then other sectors like power exchange, then independent power producer, captive power producer, ultra mega power producers, all these were all generating companies. Power exchange used to purchase power, surplus power, and it used to give at a cheaper cost. Distribution companies, as you see, this is the picture of Maharashtra, state discom, and in Mumbai there are three operators as I mentioned, Tata Power Distribution, BST, and Adani Distribution. Now all this is connected to the transmission system. This is called STU, State Transmission System. It is like a highway. In the highway, all roads connects to highways, then you can go from one part of the country to another part. Like that, state distribution system was just transmission utility. This power was given to the state, where all stakeholders who had their own transmission system like Tata Power Transmission, Adani Transmission, they all became the stakeholders of the ST, but the control was with the state. And customer had a choice. Customer had a choice to choose either from one of the distribution licenses, or he could source from outside the state, from power exchange or independent power producer. You could source power if he got a cheaper power. So he had a choice now. He could switch from one distributor to another distributor using his own the earlier distributors cables or wires. So this is the benefit customer got. Like a mobile operator, here now the customer can choose the distribution companies. Then there was a regulator. Regulator's role is to take care of customers' interest. He always sees whether customer is benefited or no. So this is the role regulator plays. And appellate tribunal and grievance forum. If the customer or a supplier has got any problem, there is a channel open to the appellate tribunal. So business framework of Electricity Act 2003 was, it was the Electricity Act rules were framed by Government of India. The rules, when they say rules, how the power sector should operate. And Government of India has got Ministry of Power. It is the total in charge of power sector in India, Ministry of Power, Government of India. Now, for this Ministry of Power, there is a secretariat that is called CES, Central Electricity Authority. It was there right from beginning, Central Electricity Authority. They were earlier making all rules, regulations and all that. Now they became a part of the Ministry of Power. They give the necessary guidance to Ministry of Power, like a secretariat for Ministry of Power. Now, Ministry of Power, they formulate a national electricity policy. When we say national electricity policy, it decides how the framework of the electric supply should look like, what type of expansion to take place, what should be the target of generation, what should be the target of transmission lines, how much distribution should cover, all that approach towards the requirement that is done by the Government of India to National Electricity Policy. It even talks about fuel mix. Now they are talking about renewable energy. Then it talks about technology upgradation, innovation. All this comes under National Electricity Policy, which is framed by Central Electricity Authority and Ministry of Power. It releases the National Electricity Policy. Then National Tariff Policy. Again, tariff policy also approach towards the tariff. What should be the tariff? How much the profit these utilities should get? Because power supply is required by everyone. It is an essential commodity. They cannot increase the tariff as per the whims and fancies. So that's why there is a policy. For generator, they get 15.5% on the equity. Whereas for distribution company and transmission, it is 16% return on investment on their equity. This is how a tariff policy is prepared. Then competitive bidding, when they put up any transmission line or a generator, there has to be a competitive bidding. Whoever is going to supply electricity at a cheapest cost, he will get a opportunity to put up the generator or a transmission line. Then National Rural Policy. This deals with the supplying electricity to each and every corner of our country. The policy states, if in any village, if there is a distribution line and one distribution transformer, and if we supply to the panchayat office, to a hospital, to a school and a grama panchayat, and 10% of the institution, 10% of the household, if he gives electricity, that means the grama panchayat will give the certificate, this village is electrified. That means 90% of the customer house is not having electricity, but on record, that village is electrified. So this is the policy. Similarly, we have got policy for our education, other things. So this is like that. Policy is always in favor of government. And today government can claim that 100% villages are electrified. As on December 2019, 100% villages are electrified. Does it mean that all 100% households are electrified? No. It is only 10%. Balance 90% households are still not electrified. There are many reasons. We can't blame only the power utilities, state electricity board. There are many reasons like right of way is not provided. There is a dispute to put even a electricity pole to pass a line. There are many problems are there, but 100% electricity villages are electrified as per the policy, but actually 90% households are not electrified. Now to take all of that policy guidelines, there has to be one regulator to ensure it is implemented. So there is a regulator at national level. It is called Central Electricity Regulating Commission, and state level State Electricity Regulation Commission. So every state has got a regulator where there are things which involves interstate level regulations, then national level Central State Electricity Regulator comes into picture. So as per the India's national plan 2018, you can see the renewable energy, you can see, has given the highest priority. 275 megawatt of power installed generating capacity only in renewable sector. Renewable means solar, wind, biogas, then your hydro. These are all coming under the renewable. So now, as by 2027, the renewable sector will be installing 275 gigawatt. That is 275 only renewable. And target for 2022, by next March, the renewables target is 175 megawatt. Today it is half of that. Today we are in the month of June, 4th July 2020. Today we are only at a level of 80 megawatt, 80 gigawatt in renewable. So you can see it is more than double. So you can see the tremendous opportunity for electrical engineers like you to see the growth. When there is a growth, there is a opportunity, but there is a lot of challenge also. We will discuss. So having seen this, we discuss about the national policy for electrification, rural policy for electrification. Now to take care of the 90% household who are not electrified. Now government has got various schemes. One of them is Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana. Earlier, Gandhi Gram Jyoti Yojana. Now renamed as Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana, and they are giving sufficient funds to ensure that power reaches each and every corner of India. And Sahaj Bijli Saubhagya Yojana, this is also to take care of each and every household to have lights. If not direct wires connection, solar lights, something. So they ensure that everyone will have electricity and they will not depend on the kerosene lamp as you see in this slide. So this I already discussed what is meant by definition of electrification of villages. So I will skip this. I already discussed this. Now, history of Indian power sector. If we see the history of Indian power sector, the first hydro generating station was commissioned in Darjeeling on 18th November 1897. When I say it is the first hydro generating station, it was a small, very small unit, only applying to only that location. There was no transmission, AC transmission was involved. A small generator maybe to electrify a small place. Then after that, in Shivasamudram in 1902 in Karnataka. That was also a small station without much of transmission. But in 1914, Tata Power's Khopoli generating station is started transmitting power from Khopoli to Mumbai, a distance of more than 100 kilometers. Now, installed capacity at that time was much lower because there was no support for production. Everything, the raw material was taken from our country. Mainly it was the cotton, and the cotton cloth was manufactured in Manchester in England because they were ruling our country. So there was no much growth, there was no much demand, there was no much support for expansion because we were ruled by Britishers. So installed capacity when we got freedom, independence in 1947, it was only 1,362 megawatt. Then it started growing. When Electricity Act was introduced on 31st March 2003, the installed capacity was just over 1 lakh megawatt. Now today, as on 31st March 2020, the installed capacity you can see 3,72,000 megawatt and expected to grow more than 6 lakh megawatts. So much is the growth. So you can see with the introduction of Electricity Act, how the rapid growth in generation and transmission, along with transmission also grows, how the growth accelerated with the introduction of Electricity Act 2003. Now the thermal share is about 67%, hydro share is about 13.5%. Now renewable share is at present 21.5% and 35% including hydro. Then over the years, in 8 to 10 years, it is expected to grow 65%. That means the thermal generation, the trust on thermal generation will be reduced because it is required also to take care of the thermal means there is pollution. So if we stop using coal, the pollution will reduce. So thermal generation is coming down, renewable energy sources are going up. Nuclear share is very small, just 2.1%. It may not increase much over the years. Then share of private sectors, it is now almost 50%, 46% in March 2019. This was possible mainly because of new Electricity Act 2003. At that time it was new, now it is the not Electricity Act 2003 provided the opportunity for private participation in power sector. You can see for almost 50% generation is by the private sector. Now, when the Electricity Act was introduced, the national level ATC laws aggregate technical and commercial laws, ATC. It was 36.64% in 2002-2003. It gradually reduced to 20.23% in 2017-18, and in 18-19 it is 18.72, and the target is 50%. It has to come down to 15%. But internationally, the target of this is less than 9%. we are still having a higher target of 15%, which in spite of introduction of Electricity Act 2003, it has improved, but we are not able to count down even to 15%. This is a big challenge. Okay. Now in this slide, we see per capita consumption of electricity. Now our Prime Minister is keeping on mentioning Make in India. Now Make in India is required to improve the per capita consumption. Now if you see, I have shown various countries, developed countries, then BRIC countries, BRIC nations like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. If you compare BRIC nations, BRIC countries, India has to do a lot of work to improve our per capita consumption. That is total consumption in a year and total number of people divided by total number of people. You get a per capita. So we are got lot of work to achieve a target. I have shown to China. China is more than 4,000. We are at a 1,100, 1,200 level. Now, then our neighborhood is very, very low. That is understandable. This is very low. Domestic consumption, this per capita will not go up. Just by electrification, complete country, it will not go up. If this has to go up, there has to be a industrialization. There has to be a mass production.
Mr. Arana? Mr. Arana? Audio cannot be heard. Dear participants, please wait. Dear participants, please wait. There is an interruption due to the internet problem at the speaker end.
Record. Hello.
Mr. Arana.
Hello.
Yes, it is audible. Mr. Is audible.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
Arana.
Okay. And
Present
now.
your slide. Present your
Yeah. Yeah.
slide.
Yes, Cheryl. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see the slide now?
No, I think it will take time loading.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Namita. Namita, keep that container on. Cheryl, can you see the slide now?
No, it is not visible. We can cut short. We can cut short the slides.
Yeah.
We can
Now,
cut short
even
the
now it
slides.
is not visible.
No,
Hello.
it's not visible. Not visible.
1 minute. 1 minute. Now?
No, I think it will take time for loading. It might come.
Yeah. One.
Arana, it is visible.
Is it visible, Cheryl?
Yeah, it is
Visible?
visible now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I'm sorry for the interruption, maybe due to the network problem.
It's
So
fine.
having this, yeah, I'm sorry for the interruptions. Let us continue now. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, having discussed why we need Make in India. Now, what are the challenges the power sector is facing? There are 6 challenges I have identified. One is fuel security concerns for generating companies. Now, most of the generating companies, that is more than 60% of the generators depends on coal. Oil consumption is less, more of coal, but we don't get enough coal supply in India. Only our Coal India, who is the national level coal supplier, he can supply only 60% of the requirement. Balance 40% of the coal has to be imported from outside, mainly for Indonesia. And it is a costly power coal. Because of that, cost per unit, generation cost goes up. Then gas. Some of the generators are based on the gas. Gas is not available. So either they have to go for costly gas or they have to shut down. Then most of the generating station thermal units, they are old. Because of that, they are not able to generate more than 50 to 60% of the generation. And the worst part is 42,000 megawatt capacity generators needs immediate refurbishment. They are not able to function. So this is the biggest challenge in generation. Then in distribution, their financial health is very bad. Bankruptcy is one of the main thing because the losses are not coming down. Payment of bills is not coming down. Theft of electricity is still going up. And they own more than 1,12,000 crores of amount they own to the generating companies. This is the very, very bad state of state distribution companies. Now, due to this, there is under procurement of power by states. Because when they have to procure power to meet the demand, they have to pay for the to the generators, but their financial condition is bad. So the demand was suppressed. the demand projection is suppressed. Today we have got enough generating capacity, but the demand has come down because states are not able to draw the power because they have no money to pay to the generators. So demand is suppressed. At the same time, they are not allowing private operators to operate. They are still holding on, not allowing private players in discoms, distribution business. Poor quality, unreliability of power supply. These are all the challenges in the distribution. Other challenges, delays in execution of power system projects. When we have to install generator, transmission lines, we need various licenses, acquisition of land acquisition is a problem, right of way for the transmission line is a problem. Due to that, the project gets delayed. Any delay results in cost overrun, and finally, who has to pay? The customer, consumer has to pay. Policy paralysis. The government policies are not aligned with the requirement of State Electricity Act 2003. One of the things I can mention about cross subsidy. Now, national electricity policy says there should not be any cross subsidy. Cross subsidy means you are paying to underprivileged, that is below poverty line customers at a cheaper power, at cheaper rate, and those are consuming, industrial consumer, you are charging them more. You are cross subsidizing. You are giving at the cost of the BPL customer or other low-end customers. The industrial customer has to pay more. When he pays more, he becomes cost competitive. He doesn't become cost competitive when he has to compete with globally. So this is another problem because of the policy paralysis and the shortage of skilled manpower in power sector. Now there is a tremendous requirement of demand. There is a tremendous growth. Along with growth, skilled manpower is also required, but there is a tremendous shortage of skilled manpower. When I say skill means it's a competency. You have to have knowledge and you have to have hands-on experience. When you have knowledge and hands-on experience, then you become skilled. So there is a shortage, and meeting this requirement is a challenge. So these are the 6 challenges. Now, how to overcome these challenges? The government has come out with progressive steps pertaining to distribution reforms. Now, growing demand, growing population, increasing electrification, and per capita usage will drive growth in power consumption. Because India is a vast country, population is also huge, there is a growing demand if electricity reaches all parts of India. Attractive opportunities. Now, increasing growth in renewables. Now, renewables, as I mentioned, there is a target of 175 gigawatt to be achieved by 2022. Mean next 2 years, our existing capacity is 125 gigawatt of renewables. It has to be by 2022 175, and by 2027 it has to be 275 gigawatt, means 275,000 gigawatt. And present installation is renewable is just around 80 gigawatt. You can see tremendous growth, tremendous opportunity for renewables. That means there is tremendous requirement of skilled manpower. Then policy support. So to bring down the policy technical losses and improve the performance of distribution sectors, there is a Uday Yojana, that is Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana. This deals with upgrading of networks, distribution transformers, distribution lines, the network, upgradation of network, installation of electronic meters to monitor the consumption, to monitor the depth, then installation of energy meters for every distribution transformer and feeder. So you can do the energy audit. You can identify which area there is a more losses and where the theft is happening, theft of electricity, and you can catch that. You can work on it. So this all is coming under Uday Yojana. Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana, as I mentioned, it is for rural electrification. And Integrated Power Development Scheme, IPDS, again to improve the distribution network, the infrastructure for distribution. So all this policy support government is giving. 24/7 power supply is an obligation as government wants uninterrupted power supply. Then penalization of violation of power purchase agreement, setting up smart meter and prepaid meter. Soon we are going to have smart meters and prepaid meter. Like we have prepaid cards for the mobile, we will have prepaid cards for the meter. Once your amount is over, the meter will automatically cut off. Or it can be disconnected by the DISCOM from remotely. So once that is introduced, then the customer has no choice. You pay, then you take. Otherwise, you will not get. Then introduction of distribution sub-license. Now 2003 Electricity Act is going to be further improved by introduction of distribution sub-licensing. These are all the measures to improve the power sector performance. Then decentralization of energy solution, that is microgrids in villages and smart cities. Microgrid means everywhere you can have solar installation, wind installation, and your requirement can be met through this decentralized generation, so that people need not wait for the transmission line or distribution line to reach their place. Higher investment in power sector, normally when there is a growth, investment comes. And to take care of the shortage of skilled manpower, they have started Skill India Mission. Government of India has last 5 years, they are working on Skill India Mission. Lot of things are happening in this to acquire technical, safety and soft skills. So soft skills are very, very essential. So now for power sector, it is the Power Sector Skill Council of India, PSSC. It is taking care of the technical skill requirement for power sector. Now, one of the things, technical, along with that, safety is very necessary because we are dealing with a commodity, electricity, it is not visible, invisible. Because it is invisible, there is lot of safeguards, safety requirement to be taken care when we work with electrical circuit. So safety becomes a big priority and the soft skill. Now soft skills are required for, along with our technical skill, we have to use our soft skills because we have to work with people. We should have skill for managing the people management skill. We should have communication skill. These are the skills they are required because we cannot work alone. We have to work in teams. Without these skills, we cannot grow. As we grow, our today and the junior level, the technical skill 60%, soft skill maybe 40. But as we grow, the technical skill requirement is 40, soft skills, people management, communication skill requirement is 60%, other way around. So we have to acquire the soft skills for our growth in our career. That's why soft skills are required. So these are the progressive steps which Government of India has taken. Now I'll quickly show some of the things on generation, transmission, distribution. As we see now, thermal share is 61.7% and major portion is coal out of it. Okay. One thing is very clear, coal-based plants have a sunset. Only the question, whether it is by 2040 or 2050, because as we see the growth in renewable and the capture of market in renewable will be going higher and higher, and the thermal share will come down. Going forward, renewable energy will play a much larger role. Nuclear is at a very small percentage, and because of various reasons pertaining to radioactivity, nuclear will not play a major role. Hydroelectric power is going to play a major role. Now, as of 31st March 2020, India's hydro share was 46,000 megawatt, that is 13.5%. Now, hydroelectric potential is estimated to grow more than that, much more than that, and there's a huge potential for hydro. Renewable, as I mentioned, Government of India aims to reach a renewable energy capacity of 175 gigawatt by 2022. Now, 100 gigawatt of this is planned through solar energy. At present, it is only 40 gigawatt. 60 gigawatt through wind energy, which is at present about 35 gigawatt. 10 gigawatt through small hydro, small and mini, and 5 gigawatt through biomass-based power projects. So, Government National Electricity Policy 2018, they are having a target of establishing 275 gigawatt by 2027. So, there is a huge growth taking place in renewable energy. Now, just to give some glimpse of solar power system, normally solar system has got solar panels, and these panels are of the size of 6 feet by 4 feet size, and they got a solar cells. Now, each solar cell is of 0.5 volts. It's got about 12 rows, and each row they got 6 cells. So into 0.5, one panel will get about 72 cells are there. Voltage cell is 0.5, so 36 volts, and kilowatt of solar power requirement takes about 100 square feet of area. Now, solar power generation field area plant up to 150 megawatt solar power plants, and Pavagada in Karnataka, very favorite place for solar power generation. There are plenty of solar fields, each 100 to 150 megawatt. That means it's a huge generating plant, and this is happening all over India. Then, for installing rooftop solar panels, and advantage of rooftop solar panel is you can, you are not, you can to the grid, and night time when you want power, you can port grid. So there is a net metering provision is provided. So this has encouraged most of the people to install rooftop power plant. For the grid, and you can import from the grid, and we have to pay only the difference. So this is done through the net. Then wind power. Wind power like solar plant, wind plant also throughout our country, at various parts of our country, including Karnataka. In Karnataka, Gadag is the place. Lot of solar wind plants are there. Now, wind plant today is at present, which will be increased to 60 gigawatt by 2022. In next 2 years, almost double. If you see, each wind turbine is after rating is 1.5 megawatt to 2.5 megawatt capacity, and its output generating voltage is normally 690 volts. It is a very odd voltage, but voltage of generating voltage of wind generator. Then it is stepped up to 33 kV to connect to the grid. And the tower of the wind turbine is at a height of more than meters. And again, the wind plants are capacity is 60, 100, 150 megawatt capacity each wind plant. So you can make out, you can imagine how much this wind power has got a potential to power supply country. Transmission network is increasing rapidly because to evacuate the generation, we need transmission. I mentioned we have the state transmission utility that is in the blue color, where all generators are connected and distributors are connected. Then at a national level, we have got transmission, interstate transmission system, ISTS. This is operated by Power Grid Corporation of India. It is at a voltage of 400 kV and 765 kV. At that level, they are operating. This transmission interconnected with the national transmission system. You can see the advantage. With this national grid, the most generators on the eastern part of India, northeastern and eastern. And the demand is normally western and southern part. So whatever generation which was produced earlier, utilized, today we can use generation from one corner of India to another corner. And customer has got a advantage to source from any of the supplier through open access. So national level grid as formed. Earlier it was a regional grid, like 5 regions are Karnataka is located, western grid where Maharashtra is located, northern grid, eastern grid and northeastern. Now they are all interconnected. The interconnecting net lines are 400 kV or 765 kV. And one of the advantage is reliability. There is a grid code for reliable power supply, so that means even if one generator trips or one line trips, still power not paid. This is the reliability criteria. Then they are talking about the target of availability. If your system is available for 98%, then only you will get a full your revenue. Otherwise, there will be penalty. Then technology upgradation through IT infrastructure, like operation of network through SCADA and distribution automation. Then your AMR, automatic automation of the meter reading. All that is coming under the grid code. This is now for improving the reliability in transmission. Now we are installing the GIS, gas insulated switchgear. This is an indoor type of gas insulated switchgear. And this is a 220 gas insulated switchgear. We have 400 kV gas insulated switchgear. It occupies only 20% of the area compared to air insulated switchgear. So compact it is, especially for cities like Mumbai and metropolis where there is no land available. This becomes very handy. This is a outdoor type gas insulated showing 220 kV outdoor gas insulated switchgear. Very compact, no place requirement. This is how a gas insulated switchgear looks like. There are 2 bus bars and all the 3 in the one tube only. Bus bar 1, bus bar 2, 2 bus bars. There is a circuit breaker, CTs, BTs are inside, terminations are everything inside, and it is filled with SF6 gas at a pressure of 5 bars. So everything is enclosed and very compact. This is a new technology. We have got more than 10, 12 GIS stations in Mumbai, EHV stations, 220 kV. there is a space constraint, we can use EHV plug and switch system, which is called PAS. If you see in that PAS hybrid switchgear, we have got a circuit and isolator, CT, PT, everything is in one unit. It is very compact. You can directly connect to bus bar. It is a hybrid. It is a half air insulated, half is gas insulated. This is another facility available. Couple of places where we have space constraint, we have gone for this system, PAS system. That is plug and switch system. Very compact. SF6 is filled inside. Yes. Suppose you need a place of 20 meters with plug and socket, plug and switch system. You can have just 12 meters, means you have 8 meters length of the bay. Similarly, we have got GIS for distribution for 22 kV, 11 kV circuit breakers. Also, we have got gas insulated switch gear. You can see the bus bars are enclosed in the SF6 pipes, and circuit breaker is vacuum switch gear. Everything is either vacuum or GIS, very compact. Now, this provides reliability. Faults are very less, everything is reliable, no maintenance, maintenance free. Now, I'll skip this slide. Mumbai has got number of receiving stations, about 25 EHV receiving stations are there in Mumbai. So we have got, Tatas have got their own generation, thermal, then hydro, then renewable generation, and additional requirement, whatever is extra generation is required, we source from state transmission utility and national grid. So the power supply comes to Mumbai, and when there is any disturbance, we have got our generators will supply only our load, and the interconnection with other state grid will be disconnected so that Mumbai will not get shut down. Because of this islanding scheme, I don't know, more than last 10-15 years, there is no blackout or total shutdown in Mumbai. That is the advantage. That's why the investors come and set up their industries in Mumbai, but now land has become very expensive. Grid frequency. As per the grid code, the utility is supposed to maintain the grid frequency, because if the frequency comes down less than 50 cycles, heating and vibration, or more than 50 cycles, again vibration, this is harmful for generators, harmful for motors. It has to be maintained within the limit 49 to 50.5 band. If it is more than that, then there will be a disturbance or a lockout, shutdown, blackout will happen and disturbing the collapse of grid. Now, to ensure that the utilities follow grid discipline, there is a UI price regime has come, unscheduled interchange. If the utilities, DISCOM start drawing power more and more and disturbing the power becomes, whatever he draws, no, he has to pay penalty. And similarly, if the generator, he starts generating beyond 50 cycles, because our frequency is 50 cycles. If he generates more than 50 cycles, he will not get paid for that. The cost will be reduced, and finally, he will not get any money for his generation. So the stick is shown to the generator as well as DISCOM. DISCOM cannot overdraw. If he overdraws, he has to pay penalty. The generator cannot generate more. He will not be paid for his generation. That's why frequency has to be maintained. In distribution, as I mentioned, the franchisee model is introduced. Franchisee model is, he is like a distributor, but working under the distribution. Do the modification, improvement, expansion of distribution network, he will do the operation, maintenance, then troubleshooting, then bill collection, everything he will do on behalf of the DISCOM. So this will improve, means this is providing a avenue for private player to come and the distribution sector. This is going in a large way. And there are so many franchises. We when they started the successful by Torrent, then Agra City, Kanpur, Ajmer. Ajmer is by Tata Power. But some places, this franchise model has failed because too much of competition and they were not able to sustain. But this is a lesson for the private parties. When they quote for franchisee model, they have to be realistic. Then open access. Any customer from any area, he can access power from any generator or any distributor. This is a open access. For example, Tata Power customer can take power from R Infra, Adani distribution, or Adani customer can take power from Tata Power distribution, vice versa, or from outside the state. All that option is there for the customer. Aerial punch conductor, you can see we had taken our Delhi distribution under public-private participation. Tata Power is operating in Delhi. When they took over, this is how the distribution network was. You can see how much is a jumbling and how much because of that the theft was taking place. The ATC loss was of the tune of 53%. After Tata's took over the distribution network, you can see how it is simplified with the aerial punch conductor. Now the losses have come down. Over the last 18 years, it has come down to less than 9%. You can imagine how much improvement Tatas have done in Delhi. See, aerial punch conductors look, it is all cables and the connection is with the piercing connectors. So nobody can hook the power and draw electricity because the conductors, it is overhead, they are all insulated. The aluminum bare this thing is for neutral. So he cannot hook and take the power supply by stealing. If power supply has to be connected, it has to be through this type of piercing clamps. Automation, we are our receiving station, all the receiving stations are unmanned. They are controlled through SCADA. For SCADA, there is a master and the slave. Through that master and the slave, data goes to the master and he takes necessary controls. So all operation, maintenance, monitoring is done through SCADA, and there is CCTV cameras installed at all locations to ensure that everything goes on smoothly. Similarly, distribution automation to take care of switching over of power supply in distribution network. Without the person going to the location, he can change over the supply, he can switch off, switch. This is distribution automation. This we have introduced in Mumbai distribution. That's why Mumbai customer doesn't get shut down. If there is a shutdown, the duration may not be more than 10 to 15 minutes. Then most of our customers are done through automatic meter reading. The meter reader need not go to the customer installation for meter reading. The requirement of a skill under Power Sector Skill Council initiative set up Skill Development Institute. This is installed at this is there at Shahad, which is about 50 kilometers from Mumbai. Shahad, Mundra in Gujarat, then Maitan in Jojabera, Maitan in Jharkhand. So we have got and Jojabera, Mundra and Maitan. Yes, these are the Skill Development Institute and Trombay in Mumbai. Next slide. This is of our Skill Development Institute at Shahad, which is just 50 kilometers from Mumbai, just outskirts of Mumbai. We have got 10 acres of land and we have got real size, life size equipment like transformers, circuit breakers, all life size, transmission tower, transmission line, distribution network, cables, all training, then metering, protection, testing, all trainings are carried out in this institute. And over the years, lot of students from St. Joseph Engineering College have benefited and satisfied with the training. And now also some of your participants also maybe can be sharing his experience because they have come and taken the training and they benefited here. And I am showing the principal's name, Mr. Satish Mahajan. Is you can take down his email ID and mobile number. And we are giving at the moment online in power system, in solar system, in safety, protection, testing, in various fields, cable jointing, cable testing, cable laying. Now, why this training is required? Just our syllabus is enough. Now, what happens earlier when joined, we used to go in parallel for 1 year under the seniors and we used to get training. Today, the renewable sector which is growing within 6 months, they have to install and commission. There is no time for anyone to give training and this thing. So they want, the moment an engineer joins, they expect engineer to perform. Has he got a skills, hands-on skills? Does he know the standards, safety standards, installation code, national codes, statutory requirements, testing, if any after testing whether the equipment is okay or no. All these skills he may not learn in the college, which he learns normally, we are learned through our experience. But today, there is no time. Everything to be done instantly. Within 6 months, a project has to be commissioned. That's why those who undergo training through the skill development institutes, their employable chances are very high. That is why the Skill Development Institute play a vital role, including our Tata Power Skill Development Institute. You can see this slide. Many of the things which were not impossible, they were achieved by constantly trying, even when there seems to be. This was by Dale Carnegie. So this is, I am referring to power sector reforms. With these reforms, definitely India can reach a greater height, definitely, because lot of trust is there, improvement is happening. Before I close this session and before we throw open to the question and answer, I'm sorry I exceeded a little bit time, you have to bear with me. This is a picture what you see, corona effect. In our electrical are all familiar with the corona effect. When there is a ionization happening due to higher potential gradient and due to environmental, that is due to the pollution, environmental pollution, a discharge happens. This will not return, but it is harmful over the course of time. This is called corona effect. And we are also now suffering the pandemic, corona. Now what we have for electrical corona effect, we clean the insulator and we ensure that corona effect doesn't happen. Same thing in case of our corona effect at our environment, please take care. Corona effect is, corona is spreading. Please have mask, wash your hands, keep social distance so that you are all protected from corona effect. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Now I request Cheryl to throw open for any questions. I will be glad to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Arana, for your very valuable and informative talk. Definitely, we'll defend ourselves from corona, both electrically and physically.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions. I had got in my mail and then through this chat box also, but few of them, since it is like repetitive kind, I have filtered out few questions and I'll just take only few questions. So because since we are running short of time, so the first question is, what are the skill opportunities or how can we develop our skills during this lockdown period?
Yeah, earlier we used to ask the participants come to the location and take training because we have a lot of hands-on training. It is we were giving 20% theory, 80%. But due to the lockdown, nobody can travel. It is not advisable to come to the location and take training. So we have started online trainings. We give a lot of online trainings. They are going on. Every day I'm busy giving online training in solar system, power system, testing, protection. These are all very special areas, testing, protection, and we have got experienced retired faculties like me. There are in the respective area. Everyone is not expert in all the areas. So solar, wind power, safety, then protection, testing, power system, you name the things we have got, including soft skills. We give training. And for engineers who are already, they have got knowledge. Most of the, so we don't have to again repeat, except for little bit focused knowledge. We have lot trainings, 1 week training like that. And the fees are not much, around 1,000 rupees per week. That's why I have displayed the number of Mr. Satish Mahajan, the principal of Training Institute, Shahad. So that you can take down his number, Satish Mahajan. He will be very glad to respond.
Dear students, I wish to state you that few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, some of our St. Joseph Engineering College students had been for Tata Power Skill Development Institute for internship training for about 1 week, and this year also, Mr. Lanikulas of third year, he had been for the internship program at Tata Power. So you can contact through me, or you can directly write to the email skmahajan@tatapower.com, or you can just mail to me so that I can forward your request for the skill development. Okay. So shall I move on to the next question, Mr. Arana?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is, how online trading is done by the generating companies based on peak load demand? How online trading is done by the generating companies based on peak load demand.
Yeah. Now, what is happening is I showed you the automatic meter reading system. Now, similarly, now automatic meter reading is happening at a utility grid level, then state grid level, and national grid level. So everything is interconnected, and there is a regime called ABT, availability based tariff. Now we are following as per the grid code, ABT, availability based tariff system. So here what happens, the generator has to generate as per the power purchase agreement. Every generator has to have a customer. The customer is, who is the customer? Mostly the state DISCOM. And sometimes the individual industry who has got a big industry and major load, he becomes a customer of the generator. Now, if he generates more than what is the power purchase agreement, he will not get paid. So he has to generate as per the agreement. More generation, he is a boozer. So he has to monitor. Now, second thing, if he generates more, what happens? Every generator has a PPA, power purchase agreement. So someone tries to generate more, frequency will go up. The frequency will go up, he will not get paid. and there can be a system disturbance. If it generates less, frequency will go down, there can be a blackout, then customer has to pay more for overdraw because his generator has not generated the PPA. So his power purchase becomes very costly. So they have to generate within the parameters of the load, customer load and that much generation. More than that he generates, he will be a loser. So he monitors with the availability based tariff meters. There are meters which are called availability based tariff meters. They are different from our normal meters. This monitor the consumption for every 15 minutes, whereas our meters monitor for every hour. This monitors 15 minutes time gap. So ABT meters are connected with the generator to monitor this peak load demand. I hope I answered this question.
Yes, Mr. Arana. The last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Whether high power wireless transmission will become a reality in future. Whether high power wireless transmission will become a reality in future.
See, one thing is that everything is possible, nothing is impossible in this world. When I came to Mumbai 45 years ago, we had to wait for 6 years to get a telephone connection because it was hardwired telephone connection, either due to non-availability of network or non-availability of telephone instruments, various reasons. It was not possible, 6 hours waiting period. Today, what is happening? Today, the moment you pay, you get a mobile connectivity, wireless. From wire, it has become wireless. Nobody imagined that the telecommunication system will improve to such an extent. Every town, village had maximum 100 or 1000 telephones. Other than that, everyone had to go to post office, wait for 1 hour, 2 hours, 6 hours to make a call. Otherwise, have a lightning call. Lightning call costed 6 times more. Today, you can connect to any corner of the world with a mobile phone with the satellite technology, with the mobile signals. Why not for power? All that you require is a transmitter and receiver and a microwave. The microwave may be electromagnetic waves or through the laser technology. With the transmitter, to transmit is high power and receiver to collect and supply to the load. This technology, there are a lot of work is going on. Only at the moment, the issue is it safe? What are the hazards? Because even when we use microwave at our home, we keep a safe distance because radiation is happening. So when power is transmitted wireless to the microwave or laser technology, lot of high power radiation which may harm the living objects, the human being and other living animals, living creatures. So they have to work on it, and probably over the years, this challenge may be overcome. And what Cheryl ma'am was asking, whether the microwave transmission, that is wireless transmission, is possible, it may happen. Lot of work is going on in this. Lot of work is going on superconductor. So once the breakthrough happening, this may be a reality. Maybe not in my generation, maybe your generation may be able to see this reality. Thank you.
Okay. So that's it, sir. So now we'll conclude the session.
Yeah.
So, dear participants, I thank Mr. Harman Arana for readily agreeing to deliver the talk. Sir, I understand that you have put lot of efforts to prepare the content. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. I also thank Mr. Ragesh Raju for his patience and for the technical support. Thanks, Mr. Rakesh Raju. I also thank the management for the facility. Dear participants, I thank all of you for your keen interest in registering for this session, as well as for your questionnaires. I hope this session was very informative to you. Hoping for the interaction in the future as well. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Thanks for the management, faculty members, and panel members. And the students who participated and patiently listened to me. It was a pleasure. I thank you very much. Namaste, namaskara.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.